Good morning or afternoon. Here we are at week 8, which means we're approaching the 1/6 mark. We have almost read 1/6 of the Bible. And our reading today is somewhat scattered. Our passages are mostly taken from Deuteronomy and Leviticus, although there are some from Exodus. Remember, our editor, Mr. F. Lagarde Smith, has compiled into one place the various offerings of the details of the law that were given to Moses basically on Mount Sinai or Mount Horeb, depending on where you read it. So we are in that compilation area where we are reading laws about different portions of the law. And remember, Leviticus is named that because it is the instructions to the Levites. Deuteronomy is named that because it is due, the second offering of the law. So the law was given to us or recorded for us partly in Exodus at the time they were building the tabernacle. It was given to us in Leviticus when it was primarily describing the duties of the Levitical priests, the sons of Levi, and it was given to us again in Deuteronomy. And this editor has put the related passages together, which I find somewhat helpful. So, as I said, Deuteronomy, the name kind of means the second delivery of the law. So I'd like to begin today by reading a passage from Deuteronomy 18, starting at verse 15. And we'll focus in on the book here for a moment. And our author, our editor, I should say, titles this section, Messiah to be True Prophet. And I'm going to read the whole passage to you. The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your own brothers. And this is Moses speaking. You must listen to him, for this is what you asked of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, let us not hear the voice of the Lord our God, nor see this great fire anymore, or we will die. The Lord said to me, what they say is good. I will raise up for them a prophet like you from among their brothers. I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command him. If anyone does not listen to my words that the prophet speaks in my name, I myself will call him to account. And over here on the left, I've written down that Peter quotes this same passage in Acts 3:22, but when he quotes it, instead of saying, I myself will call him to account, it says, will be utterly destroyed. So just for the record, this is genuinely, or at least commonly ascribed as being a reference to the coming of Jesus. And I believe that is a correct interpretation. So we need to recognize that this is one of the more clear references very early to the fact that there will be another prophet who will have to come, who will be of flesh, but will know every word of God. He won't have to be spoken to from a fiery mountain, where Moses had to get the word from a fiery mountain on Mount Sinai. Jesus was God's Son and knew every word. Okay, so having said that, I would like to note that in both Exodus and Deuteronomy, the sections that are in our book titled Section D as in Delta, about laws requiring dedications, I think this is interesting in that the emphasis is on first fruits, recognizing that the gifts that God gives us, which is essentially everything, the gifts God gives us, we are to give the first part of those fresh fruits to God. And this is the motivation for the contributions to the church, the sacrifices made by the Israelites in the tabernacle. All of that is targeting the first fruits. And I would specifically note that he seems really keen on firstborn males. So that's another reference, an obscure reference perhaps, but another reference to why Jesus had to be born the way he was, because it had to be the first fruits, because he's going to return to God. So the first fruits have to come back to God. And then also within this section, I think the editor does a great job of bringing together all the major feasts. He lists them in order, and I'll just run through some of the high points of those as part of our discussion this afternoon. The first major feast, of course, is the Passover, also called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And remember that the Passover lamb was a reminder of the angel of death in Egypt and kind of a foretaste of the death of Jesus. The unleavened bread was meant to be a reminder of the fact that they were traveling out of Egypt in haste. They did not have time to be leavening their bread and letting it sit overnight, blah, blah, blah. They had to eat unleavened bread. And our author notes that this is the first lunar month in the calendar, which is in our time frame, March or April. So then, the next feast is the Feast of Weeks, or First Fruits. This is usually in May or June, and it is the third lunar month, the 6th day thereof. Now that's quite interesting, because that means it is 7 weeks plus 1 day, i.e. 50 days, i.e. Pentecost. So Jesus was crucified at the time of the Passover, and he left to go be with God. He was the first fruits of his work on Pentecost. On the 50th day, he rose to go back to be with God. The fourth feast that is mentioned by our editor is the Feast of Trumpets. That's the 7th lunar month, the first day, and that puts it in the September-October time frame. And that has the common name amongst the Jews today of Rosh Hashanah, and that's the new year. And it's interesting, this is kind of a warm-up for the atonement, the Day of Atonement, excuse me. That's the warm-up for the Day of Atonement, which is in the 7th lunar month, and it's the 10th day, so we're talking 9 days later, basically. So again, September and October. And this feast is called commonly today Yom Kippur. And I would remind you, and there are a couple of other holidays they celebrate today, but they're celebrating later events. But I would remind you that Yom Kippur was the day of the start of the famous Arab-Israeli War. I believe the Arab states, specifically Egypt, they believed that the Israeli people would probably be a little less attentive to what was going on around them because of the holiday. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, that's Yom Kippur. That was the start of the Arab-Israeli War. So we carry on next time. In this same section, we'll be reading additional compilations of rules from Leviticus, Exodus, and Deuteronomy for our next week of reading as well. So thank you for being with us here on this 8th week, and we look forward to meeting again.